frozen in fear on the path to burnout. It's only a split second, but it feels like an eternity. The eyes are glowing in the light, but everything is motionless. For a moment, your brain stops as it tries to process what's happening before eventually realizing that the deer is frozen in headlights, like they're in some magical freeze ray. You slow down, you honk the horn, and the spell is broken. The deer continues on its way, and you start to realize your heart is trying to beat its way out of your chest. We've all been that deer. We've all been on the other side of those magical headlights and been frozen by our fear of what might happen. In our fear, we fail to do the one thing that can keep us safe, to keep moving. So burnout and efficacy. Burnout is frequently defined as exhaustion, cynicism, and inefficacy. We know that we can be exhausted as a part of the greatest times of our life, as well as our lowest. Cynicism is our response to the belief that we're not able to affect change. So the best we can do is complain about it. Inefficacy, however, is different. Inefficacy is the sense of learned helplessness or lack of hope that we can change our circumstances. In our moments of fear, we may feel as if hundreds of ideas are running through our head, vying for our attention. Or we may find ourselves completely blank without a single coherent thought. Either way, we're stuck, just like the deer in headlights. So how do we get unstuck? For most of the moments in our life, there's no magical car horn that can sound to break us out of the trance of fear. Perhaps because in doing so, it might make us more fearful. Instead, we must rely on our awareness of the situation, the problems and the solutions we already have to help move us forward. That relies on our assessment of both the stressor and our resources. Stressors. In our lives, there will be things that are stressors to us. Things that we fear because of their potential impact to our lives. We may believe that there's a poisonous snake or a lion that is about to bite us, and that our best answer is to stay still and hope they don't see us. However, most of the things we are afraid of today are less about life and death and more about loss. Whether it's the loss of a job, the loss of a relationship, the loss of our home, we perceive the possibility for loss and are afraid of how we'll cope. There are two aspects to assessing the stressor. The first is impact. Here, our greatest challenge is recognizing that the real long-term impact is not always what we think it is. Too often, we overestimate the impact and extend the impact forward in time forever, and thus expect that it will permanently change our world for the negative, when the truth is rarely that way. The second is evaluating the possibility that the imagined impact will become real. Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, said, "I am an old man, and I have known a great many troubles, but most of them never happened." We quite often overestimate the likelihood that something will happen once we've identified it. But what about our resources? Our resources to cope with the negative impact caused by a stressor are both our internal capacity as well as the capacity of those around us who care for us. When evaluating the fear that is preventing us from moving forward, we sometimes skip over the resources we have in ourselves and in our friends, colleagues, and allies. If we give these collective resources their due consideration, we'll find that the stressor, although troubling, isn't something to be afraid of. So how do we move forward? If you want to get unstuck, move forward with your fear, and ultimately stave off burnout, it may be as straightforward as reevaluating the stressor that's triggering the fear and your assessment of your capacity to address it, even if it were to become real.